Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Community Conversations. I'm Dan McKee, Lieutenant Governor of the state of Rhode Island. Tonight, we have a very, very important show, especially on the backdrop of the Governor Raimondo's press conference today, where we fell far short of what our ask has been as a coalition of small businesses around the state. Important to everybody, whether you're in small business or not in small business. The economy is driven by the small business. The largest portion of employment in the state is supplied by small businesses. And today we, heard that our ask had been 125 million, getting out to 10,000 businesses, getting it out quick, distribute it through municipalities, set the criteria, allow the businesses, small businesses, they're smart enough to know how to spend the dollars that would come through them through grants. We fully understand a $10,000 or $15,000 grant to the small businesses, the 10,000 small businesses of the state of Rhode Island is a game changer on the short term. We also know that it is not everything that we need to have our small businesses survive. I've been talking about a very aggressive loan strategy, partnering in with the local banks, with SBA guarantees and state guarantees, getting $1 billion of loans out in the street in the next year for our small businesses. We heard, a token amount, $20 million today as being a loan amount. We know how fast that's going to go. When there was a $10 million loan strategy back in April or May, that went in about 2 hours. We need to get loans out, we need to get the grants out, and we need to make sure that it's in a short time frame. We're also hearing that it might take 2 weeks to apply and maybe another 6 weeks for the small businesses to receive the dollars. And we're picking kind of winners and losers in that whole format. So there's a role for our small businesses, and we're going to have what I call my three amigos, my three friends, Lori, Justin, and Chris on today's call, talking about next steps to organize small businesses so that we actually have a strong voice that we've already started to develop. I think that today was an example of the fact that at least there's movement going on in the right direction, and we got to make sure that we continue to work to make sure our small businesses survive in the state of Rhode Island. If they don't, then our municipal budgets will fail, our state budgets will fail, and we'll have a heavy unemployment in the state of Rhode Island. So job training is important, as the governor said today, but right now we should be saving the jobs that actually currently exist in the state of Rhode Island and doing everything we can to do that. So that's a piece of our show. The other part is that we have a special guest, two special guests actually, that have national significance in terms of the small business discussion. First is Jason Wiens, Jason's involved with the Kauffman Foundation. They have a New American business plan that I've read when I was out at the National Lieutenant Governors Association meeting in Kansas City in December, pre-COVID. I was able to be the moderator of a panel where this plan was discussed. When you see the details on this, it really does apply to Rhode Island. And we're looking to, make Rhode Island a part of that system that with the Kauffman Foundation, what Jason's going to talk about with the New American business plan. And finally, we're very fortunate to have a local elected official, Stephen McAllister, who's going to be talking about tonight, talking about the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and what's happening nationally and regionally and what that impact it has on the state. Steve is a town council member for the city of Warwick, and he's been very, very active in that. So that's kind of the setup for tonight. It is about making sure that we're doing everything that is in our power to do, and I think we have a long way to go. But we did start that today. I think that's the upside, but we got a long way to go, and you're going to hear about that tonight. So Ben, bring on Jason, please. I want to just introduce Jason and the conversations we've had. Jason, welcome to Rhode Island.
Thank you. It's great to be with you, although it's virtually. Hope to be there in person someday soon.
Well, I think that we're going to make that happen. We're looking for the vaccine. I think we're seeing some heavy outbreaks of the virus around the country, and we're really making a point to make sure that the people in the state of Rhode Island follow the rules, because if we have to we've reopened to a certain degree, not as much as we want, but under the circumstances, far greater than many other states, and we just don't want to go backwards. So wear the mask, wash the hands, keep the social distancing, and support our small businesses. Jason, tell us a little bit about, the Kauffman, your work in terms of the, I think there's you've created a new piece or new committee out of the Kauffman, right? Tell us about that. Tell us about the New American Business Plan, and share that with the people in Rhode Island right now. I think it's an extraordinary report.
Thank you very much. Yeah, happy to do so. So first, let me say a few things about the Kauffman Foundation. We are a private philanthropy located in Kansas City, and our mission is really to bolster and support entrepreneurship across this country. The founder of the Kauffman Foundation, Ewing Kauffman, was a very successful entrepreneur, and so he knew how important entrepreneurship was, both for his life and for the life of a community. The entrepreneurs, they create their own businesses, but those businesses employ many people and are so critical to the fabric of our economy. Lieutenant Governor, you probably know this stat, but it might surprise some of the people who are tuning in tonight. Businesses that are less than 5 years old are responsible for nearly all net new job creation in the United States. That's why entrepreneurship is so important. If we don't have people taking that risk to start a new business, we don't have job growth in America today. So entrepreneurship is key, and at the Kauffman Foundation, we use grant making and other strategies to support efforts that help entrepreneurs all across America. And one of those efforts that we embarked on last fall is something called America's New Business Plan. And this is a bipartisan policy roadmap that we put together for government officials to give them a better understanding about what they can do in their city, in their state, in Washington, D.C., to remove barriers to entrepreneurship and level the playing field so that all people, regardless of who they are or where they're from, if they have an idea, they're able to take that idea and turn it into a business.
Yeah, and again, the report is right on target. It really matters throughout the country. It certainly hits home here in Rhode Island when you talk about the importance of these business 5 years old or less, and developing the jobs. And also you talked in that report, I thought, which I think is very important, especially in the backdrop right now of COVID-19. We have many small businesses, thousands of small businesses that we've been working with, as I've explained. And when we bring our next panel on to work, to talk with you and kind of pick your brain a little bit, we're hearing exactly what your report was saying. Why does our local government is not responding to us? Our state government is not responding to us. I think the federal government got a couple good marks with the PPP loans and the EIDL loans. So, they seem to be responding. But in that report, you talk about certain percentages of people who have small businesses and how they feel about their local government. Could you share that a little bit? Because I think that's important for all our elected officials to hear, where we think that we're, in many ways, communicating with our small businesses, but what are they really thinking?
Yeah. I had the report right in front of me, so I have the reference points here, but we did some polling last year where we asked entrepreneurs questions about, how do they feel that policymakers and government were supportive or not of them in their entrepreneurial endeavors. And 79% said that they didn't feel that they had the support from government to start their business. 66%, so 2/3 of all entrepreneurs, said that government incentives favor established, often bigger businesses and not their new enterprises and their efforts to start something new. And then 60% said entrepreneurs, they think, don't care, or they think that government doesn't care about them. And so those were really stark figures to us. And it was just another data point illustrating this need to educate folks who are in government about entrepreneurship. What is it? Why is it so important? And what are the challenges that entrepreneurs face? And how can government make that really difficult process of starting a new business a little bit easier?
Yeah, and so Jason, let's just talk about that for a little bit. I think you have some ideas. In many ways, I'm an elected official. I happen to be a small business, person with a heavy background in that. So I'm, my thought process is always, thinking about that in the context of the work that I'm doing. But many of our elected officials aren't in small business. they don't really understand the pressure that's going on right now in our small businesses around the country, and Rhode Island in particular for us, because of the loss of revenue. And so this is an extraordinary time. But in normal times, what is your strategy in terms of figuring out a way to kind of reverse that, so that that the numbers are not so lopsided, and that we kind of bring it back into where the small businesses get a sense that the local elected officials actually want to understand, and they are working on their behalf so that they feel differently about that.
Yeah. Well, I think it starts with education, and it starts especially when those people who are business owners, the entrepreneurs and people who work closely with them, can be those messengers educating elected officials about what it is that they do and the challenges that they faced. So that's, America's New Business Plan is a document for folks like yourself, Lieutenant Governor, who are in positions where you can help make a difference for business owners. But it's also for the people we're going to talk to later in the show tonight, entrepreneurs themselves who can become advocates for their business and for others in their community. And what we did in America's New Business Plan is we laid it out based on the 4 kind of key needs that we heard in our engagement with entrepreneurs that are pretty common across all experiences. And those are, if I may, Lieutenant Governor, run through them quickly.
Please share the outline.
Yeah.
It's very important for us to hear this.
Yeah, thank you. So the first is opportunity. And what we mean by opportunity is really, how do we create a level playing field and cut red tape that stands in entrepreneurs' way? Entrepreneurs often die a death of 1,000 cuts. It's all these different forms and regulations and things that they have to comply with that just can wear them down. How can government make it easier to start a business? And we have some suggestions in the plan to do so. The second need that we hear from all entrepreneurs is funding. Today, many entrepreneurs can't get access to the capital that they need to start their business. Our data say that 83% of new business owners, when they launch their business, they don't get venture capital and they don't get bank loans. So what are those people doing? They're bootstrapping. They're asking friends and family for money, right? They're using their credit card. We need to make sure that all entrepreneurs, no matter where they live in this country or what they look like, can get the right kind of capital that they need to start their business. The third issue is knowledge. There's a role for government to play in helping equip entrepreneurs with the knowledge and skills that they need to be successful. And then finally, this last area is support. And this is really about, how do we help those people who have an idea, they want to take that leap into entrepreneurship? How do we empower them to do so? And this requires, I believe, creating a more robust safety net that enables entrepreneurial risk-taking. So America's New Business Plan gives ideas to policymakers and advocates around these 4 themes: opportunity, funding, knowledge, and support.
Yeah, and it hits home for me as a small business owner, and a former mayor, and now a state elected official, and then the work that we're doing in terms of just trying to help our small businesses survive right now in this this pandemic and this economic crisis that really is unfolding in households around the country, and Rhode Island has its share. 2 things I wanted to just go over, and then I want to bring on the other part of the panel to really interact with you, and I'll sit back and listen a little bit. But you also talk about there where the growth is coming from and where some of the the barriers are set up. So I think you were talking about the growth, that I think I recall reading a first generation, citizens are more likely to open up a business, if you recall that section. The people who are in the some of the minority, I think you specifically talked about Hispanic community, which we have a large portion of Hispanic community in Rhode Island who are opening businesses, and also women. So talk about some of the barriers in that particular area that you discovered, and your thought process on that.
Yeah, happy to. I think if you ever pick up a magazine, and there are a number of these magazines that are really focused on entrepreneurship, or you see what's reported in popular media about entrepreneurship, you often get a picture that, and you would think that all entrepreneurs look like the two of us, Lieutenant Governor, right? White men. But entrepreneurs are all kinds of people from all parts of the country. You mentioned immigrants. Immigrants, our data show, are about 2 times as likely as native-born Americans to start businesses. But certain demographics, in particular women, people of color, and those who live in rural communities, face unique barriers to entrepreneurship. There was a report that came out in the last month or so that looked at the very initial effects of COVID and what it meant for new and small businesses. It found that between February and April, 3.3 million business owners in the United States stopped being a business owner. There was a decline of 3.3 million. Of those 3.3 million, more than 1.1 million were Latinx entrepreneurs. And the decline in African American business ownership was 41%. So there are these populations, our neighbors in our community, who face extra barriers and extra challenges. Before we went on the show today, I glanced at my phone. There was an article in the New York Times about a study that just came out where a nonprofit sent Black entrepreneurs and white entrepreneurs to the same banks with basically identical credit histories and backgrounds. And unfortunately, the banks treated the Black entrepreneurs much more poorly. And so there are these systemic issues that impact entrepreneurs, and we have to find ways to reduce those barriers and make entrepreneurship available to all people.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I liked about the report that you had, as you were saying, is a nonpartisan report. It's very very much about data. It's very data driven, and I think you need that, and otherwise you'll make mistakes in some of your policies. But we have a heavy Hispanic community in Rhode Island. We're very involved with the Hispanic community and of course the Black community and the other minority communities. And that's what I've been telling people around the state of Rhode Island. Look, we got 39 cities and towns. Every community is important. Everybody lives in those communities important. The communities that make up those communities important, Jason. That's what I tell people. And the small business community that makes up those communities is extraordinarily important. And the magnifying glass is on that right now. So what I would like to do at this point, Jason, if it's okay with you, I want to bring you on with 3 entrepreneurs. And I want to set that up a little bit, but I also want them, if they've been listening in, they're going to have many questions, because we met this morning about the next steps of what we're going to do, besides asking for the grant dollars. And I just was talking about a loan strategy for our small businesses, and also working with our municipalities to create these, options and flexibility for our businesses, not only today, but going on in the future. So, Ben, please bring Justin, Chris, and Laurie on, please, and we'll keep Jason on the screen here. Hi, Laurie.
Hello.
Chris, and
Jason.
and Justin. So I'm gonna go. We'll start with Justin, who was the first person that called me up and said, "Hey, I'd like to help out." And then from there, Jason, we started. I'll have Justin explain what we started, and I want to go to Chris, because Chris was the next person in, and then Laurie, and then just give you an update of the work that these 3 entrepreneurs in the state of Rhode Island have been doing over the last several weeks, that I put in that category of extraordinary volunteerism to help our small business community. But Justin, just introduce yourself so Jason kind of gets a view on what and also what we did initially, and then we'll have Chris kind of pick it up, and then Laurie, and then we'll get back and talk about the plan that we were talking about this morning, in terms of as a draft strategy going forward. And then I want to talk about what we heard today from the governor and open this up to a conversation. Thanks, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jay, for taking some time to, chat with us and give us some of your insight. We had a few minutes to, I think, all look over the plan, and it was great. So we started the rismallbusiness.org movement it's probably about 9 weeks ago now. We started this as an initial relief, as a gift it forward program to small businesses. So what we did was we threw up a website where businesses could go sign up, and that would allow them to receive gift card payments. So it was initial relief while they were closed, to get some quick cash in the door, kind of keep the lights on and pay the rent. That quickly evolved with just within a week, we had 2,000 businesses signed up on this thing, and it grew way faster than we all thought it was going to, and we realized that we had a chance to capitalize for the first time in a non-small business friendly state that we can be a voice, we can be heard, and that's where we kind of kept developing that plan, and we kept hitting home with it, and we kept doing some more advertising. A lot of the local places donated some time and some advertising to us, so we were able to branch out and get some really good coverage, and that's where Chris kind of comes in, and Chris owns a good marketing and branding firm, and has helped us get to that next level. So Chris, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. And again, thank you, Jason, for your time and that great plan that we read and you spoke well about. And as Justin said, we started off with an idea to get cash in the small businesses' hands as quick as possible. As you know, capital and cash flow is critically important. But a lot of small businesses not only signed up, as Justin said, right away, they were also asking to have a voice. And that's what our lieutenant governor gave them. They gave them a voice. And we also realized that we needed to unite in order to really create the change that we needed. So we formed a Rhode Island Small Business Coalition, all a grassroots organic effort made up of just small business owners, like the three of us here. And with that, we listened to each other. We heard the concerns of the small business owners, and we rallied together to create a petition, to have a press conference, to use the exponential communication from the thousands of small businesses outwards to really put our stake down in the ground and saying we need help and we need help now. And it was a great effort that the Small Business Coalition did. And it's just the beginning as we have more work to be done.
Yeah, and then Laurie Laurie came on and gave her expertise, and she was doing something, and we were able to put it together. But you get the idea. Laurie, just explain a little bit about your business too, and why you got involved in the way you have. And then I want to get into the course this morning.
Thank you, and thanks, Jason, for taking a look at what we're doing in Rhode Island. We have clients in Kansas City, actually. I don't know if you're there, but it's a little pocket for us. So Visual Thrive does marketing communications, and we focus on social media, and we do a lot of strategic planning with small businesses. And so we were experiencing at the beginning of March, our clients were making decisions about, do they stay open? How were they going to maneuver? And so my partner, Scott Indemar, and I decided that we were going to create a site, Shop Local Rhode Island, so that businesses could sign up for free onto the site and let their customers know we're offering curbside pickup, we're offering delivery, we have online classes, we had clients that were shifting from in-person services to all online. And so initially we got about 900 companies signed up, and we were marketing it. And then Dan thankfully brought the three of us all together. The lieutenant governor called and said, this is a really important piece for all of the small businesses. And so it feels like years, actually, but so since mid-March and until now, we have now kind of molded the rismallbusiness.org together so that we have this group of small businesses. And we have an intention to really understand the policies around what small businesses are doing in the state. And so I think that that's the point that we're at now. We have asked the state for specific money for small businesses, and we know that time is of the essence. And so the announcement from our Rhode Island governor was today on their first step. I would say the first step was actually our group creating the petition, where we have about 4,000 people signed on to say that taking 10% of the $1.25 billion to the state of Rhode Island was a reasonable ask to the state.
Yeah, so Jason, I just want to give thank you for your patience here, because I'm going to want you to weigh in. I think you can hear the gears rolling here. I don't know whether Ben has the headline that I wanted to put up there, but Ben, could you just put something on so that, because of Chris and Laurie and Justin, we've been on the front page of the newspapers. We've been on the local media, talking about the importance, which is part of the education you were talking about earlier, Jason. I don't know whether, Ben, do you have something that you could just run for us? But if you don't, that's okay. We'll keep on going.
I will in 1 minute. I will in 1 minute.
Okay. All right. So why don't we start with Chris today? So we've had the ask. I kind of outlined before the show started that it was significantly less, and it's a lot more cumbersome than we need. And it's certainly a step in the right direction that that people are thinking about it, but we need to kind of continue to keep the momentum going in a way that continues to put, in this case, it's political pressure that we need to expand it. So, Chris, let's just talk quickly about your reaction, Laurie's reaction, and Justin's to the governor's press conference today.
Well, it's great to see that we are heard, right? Before the petition, there was talks that not much was going to happen. If anything, they were waiting for DC to tell them what to do. But our voice was heard for this coalition, and there was a first step of many steps, and there was $50 million provided to small business grants. Not enough. $125 million is just what we needed at a minimum here. We have a lot of plans to take this to the next level that we're really curious to hear your thoughts, Jason, on what you mean when you say, pro-business typically means big business for policymakers. So, how can we change that philosophy to be supportive of small businesses in the eyes of policymakers is, something that we want to, discuss about, because this is just the step. 50 million is not enough, and 6+ weeks is too long to get cash into the business hands of the small business owners.
Yeah, so
I think, one of the things that has surprised me, I guess, well, it shouldn't surprise me, but is this idea of listening and the non-listening. I think that's happened. So we've created this push, and I believe that we've put enough stressors out there to create movement. And like Chris said, it wasn't enough. So if we have 4,000 businesses, say, signing the petition, even half of those businesses would only receive like 25,000 on the $50 million. So it's a small amount. It's not, the timing is really off. And the fact that that we haven't really been listened to in terms, or even been brought to the table. So thank you, Lieutenant Governor, who wrote a response, a very specific requests about how this money could be used and how these businesses would be able to receive the money quickly. And it was just surprising for me, unfortunate that, hey, kitty, the beauty of Zoom. And yeah, so I feel like we are not being listened to. We have too many businesses that are a little bit in dire straits right now and making really serious decisions, not just about their businesses, but about their livelihoods. Any entrepreneur knows that what we do is not just about the business. It's supporting our families. It's doing work that we love to do. It's really being able to create a community within the places that we live that can grow and support each other. I think that's a mission of our business for sure.
You want to, Ben, show this, and then I'll hope that we can get a conversation with Laurie and Chris and Justin with Jason. Turn up the volume, I think. Yep.
1 second, it doesn't have volume. Hold on.
Okay.
I'll share it.
Yeah, just show us so that gives Jason an idea of the type of traction that we're getting through the media right now, which is new for the small businesses for sure.
And while we try to get that working, I'm curious.
Or has not been done to help. I want to check in with Brandon Truitt. He has the latest on lawmakers really wanting this money freed up immediately.
Yeah, that's right. And they're looking to take it from the $1.2 billion the state received from the CARES Act. Some of that money has not been used, and now there are mounting pressure for the governor to put that towards small businesses. Just yesterday, the Lieutenant Governor, Dan McKee, stood next to local business owners and pushed for this. Shortly after, the entire Republican delegation from the state backed the cause as well. They are asking for a minimum of 10% of the CARES Act funding to go towards small business grants. Those same lawmakers accuse Governor Gina Raimondo of holding on to those funds. They say small businesses are out of time to wait. The state says they're waiting to see what, if any, additional funding they will get from the federal government. Last night, Commerce Secretary Stephen Pryor took questions from the Senate Finance Committee. Pryor saying that he believes it's essential to get as much of the economy back open as soon and safely as possible.
No amount of government subsidy/investment is going to replace the economy being open and people shopping, people otherwise supporting and doing business with our small businesses.
We can't wait. We can't wait for what Congress is going to do or not going to do.
These small businesses are, 10 feet underwater, and they are running out of oxygen.
So what's next here? Well, the Senate Finance Committee has asked the governor's office to work with them on drafting legislation to pull this off. That same committee is meeting again tomorrow. Brandon Truitt, Eyewitness News.
Yeah, so Jason, I just wanted to kind of show that's an example of multiple media, and Justin, Laurie, and Chris have also had their own interviews, and we've had top of the fold in our major newspaper twice in the last 2 weeks. So we're building, a certain amount of awareness, but now what do we do with it? And that's what I'd like to have. Maybe you could give some advice based on where you're sitting, and open up a discussion a little bit about, the next steps. And Chris and Laurie and Justin met with me this morning about how we're going to organize this into a more formalized group. But what are you thinking on it? Please comment what you've heard from these three entrepreneurs and what it means to you to see, entrepreneurs like this volunteering their time to try to figure out how to help small businesses in a state, in a state of like Rhode Island.
Well, that's where I want to start first, Lieutenant Governor, is just to say to Lori and Chris and Justin, congratulations on your efforts so far and the success. I know it's not what you asked for, but you're in the arena, and that's important. What we have found is that when entrepreneurs engage in policy conversations, they often find willing listeners, people who will listen to their stories. Public polling has showed, in fact, that small business, if you think of it as an institution in the United States, is the second most trusted institution in the country. So I think you each have very credible voices. You and others like you are experiencing these very trying circumstances day in and day out. And the more that you can share that story and bring along others who are with you in the community and who have the same needs and articulate that's important.
Yeah. So, and then Chris, just give a little overview of some of the things that you're talking about with organizing. I shared with Jason a few weeks back, but let's spend a couple minutes, and then I want to bring Steve on from the U.S. Chamber to kind of give his take on what's happening here in Rhode Island and also regionally, which he heads up a regional area for the U.S. Chamber. But Chris, just give a quick outline of what we talked about this morning, just to let Jason know that what we're trying to do and how we need outside help to make it happen.
Yeah, thank you. So with the Rhode Island Small Business Coalition that organically grew, we're formalizing it ideally into a 501c6. And the reason behind that is, like you mentioned in your articles that you wrote, pro-business does seem to mean big business for policymakers. And I'm sure it's probably related that big businesses definitely have a greater lobbying arm than small businesses do. So when we come together and our voices are heard and that our resources are pulled together too, that we can form this coalition and have representatives in this coalition, a council of representatives that represent different industries, different types of communities, so that they can speak to their communities and industries, report back as council representatives, and together with the coalition, we can create and organize and advocate for the needs of small businesses so that we can get these policymakers to think of pro-business being pro-small business.
Yeah. I spent, Lieutenant Governor and Chris, Lori, Justin, before I came to the Kauffman Foundation, I spent 10 years on Capitol Hill working in the United States House and Senate. And, that experience taught me that policymakers are often most responsive to the needs that are brought to their attention. And entrepreneurs, I have found, are rightly head down, focused on their business. I mean, that's a more than 24-hour-a-day job, right? And so to be able to then figure out how can I make the extra time to engage in these conversations with my elected officials, though important, can be challenging to do. So I commend you guys for taking those steps because I know that that's not easy. But I think the more that you can engage and bring along others, the more policymakers will begin to understand what it is that entrepreneurs, small business owners need, and you can educate them about that and guide their actions.
Yeah, so I want to use this as an introduction, not only to you, Jason, and the Kauffman Foundation, but also to the people the thousands of people who end up watching this program, this broadcast. That we're the small business community, and again, I'm a member of the small business community, have been, but I'm also a state elected officer, and unless you have the backing of the small businesses, there's not many people that are going to listen to a lieutenant governor or a governor or anyone, right? We need the base to actually set the momentum in place, and that's what not only Chris and Laurie and Justin have done, but several dozen of, if not hundreds of businesses have started that. So we want to make sure you're connected in. I wanted to, I don't know if anybody wants to say anything else, but I wanted to bring Steve on. We're ending up the last 20 minutes of the program, but I wanted Steve to come on because he has a perspective, not only as an elected official in the state, as a member of the city council in Warwick, but also he has a major, position in terms of the U.S. Chamber and regional, responsibilities, which include Rhode Island. So Steve, just introduce yourself a little bit, and then let's try to have you catch up to the conversation, make comments about what has been commented on, and then I'll try to kind of usher in a little give and take here discussion for the last 15 minutes or so.
Great. Thank you very much, Governor, for having me on. As you mentioned, I work for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We have over 3 million members of all sizes and sectors in the business community across the country and across the world that make up our membership. We have 7 regional offices across the country. I live in Rhode Island. I live in Warwick, Rhode Island. So, and I'm the executive director of the Eastern region. So, the Eastern region is out of here in Warwick, Rhode Island now. We have 11 states in my region. I work with all the congressional offices in those regions and their staffs, and we work on these federal issues, these big issues that affect the business community, like the CARES Act. Now, I know we were talking about, how the governor was waiting to see what Washington is going to do and different things like that. So I want to give a little timeline of what the next phase of the CARES Act could come down to. So this week, the Senate was off. So they're back next week. So the House and Senate will be back next week. That gives us about 3 weeks until their next recess, the August recess. So I believe that this is what we are hearing, is that hopefully by that last August 7th, was they're set to go home. Hopefully by August 7th, we'll see the next phase 4 of the CARES Act. That is what everybody seems to be waiting for. As you know, Congress, they like to do things right up at the deadlines. That's the real big next deadline. We're hoping that we will see some big changes in there, some liability reform, some employer assistance, expanding the PPP to include all nonprofits and C6s. We also want to see that, you have to reopen your business now. A lot of responsibility on providing PPE for your company, for your employees. We want to be able to see those Paycheck Protection Program funds go towards that. Allow that. Right now, that you can't use those funds for that. You can only use them for certain things like salaries. So we want to see that available. So these are just some of the things that we are touching on. Childcare is a big issue that's going to affect everybody. If the guardians need to go to work, they need a safe place for their children to go. Unemployment reform, all these things need to be done within the next 3 weeks, including the state and local aid part, which I know we're all looking towards.
Yeah. So, and I wanted to keep everybody on here because they may have something to weigh in on. And next steps, for Rhode Island, Steve. One of the things we've asked councils to do is to pass resolutions supporting these small businesses, supporting the petition that still is up and alive. And I can tell you that at least with the people I've been talking today, are pleased that the governor is, starting the mechanics to help in some way the small businesses with grants, but the timeline is so long. You're going to have dozens and dozens of businesses over the next 6 weeks that are going to close because they could have used some grants and some money. And so, Steve, how do you save these small businesses? Because I mean, the U.S. Chamber, again, the chamber that has a little bit of a model that talks about big business in a way that they don't talk about small businesses, but you got to be starting to talk about small businesses and the impact that failures are going to have on our local economies.
Absolutely. 85% of our membership is made up of the small businesses.
Define a small business for us, in terms of what the U.S. Chamber says, because I mean, everybody's got a different definition of what a small business is.
Yeah, I mean, we use the SBA, that the 50 or below employees, for the small businesses. That's why we really need to say these are, we know what a job means to a family. We know what a job means to an individual, and we need to do our best to save this. I know one of the big things that I'm sure the business owners are running into, you're trying to reopen your business, you're trying to get started, and it's hard to get back your employees. A number of people are making more money or the same amount of money with the additional $600 from unemployment insurance that the federal government is giving on top of the state benefit. That money is going to run out at the end of this month. And that's one of the things they're going to look at in the next phase. Are they going to extend that $600? Are they going to reduce it? Are they going to do a return to work bonus? These are the big things that the small business community needs to know as soon as possible. You need your people. If you're going to reopen, you need your people to return. So we need to advocate and get them back, so you can hit the ground running. And it's really difficult to retrain and find people if they're not coming back because they're sitting out on unemployment. So these are issues that we really need to address and we need to tackle soon and not later. So if we could do this tomorrow, it would be a big help for our small business community.
Yeah, clarification on those things is important. Here in Rhode Island, I would be looking for, advice on how to help Justin, Laurie, and Chris and the other members. As many members that are watching, the coalition that are watching this program right now. How do you get the attention of your local elected officials to say, look, $50 million is okay, but if it's restrictive and it takes too long to, time is, there's a saying, simple saying, time is money. Well, right now, time is more than money. Time is life and death for, in the terms of a business. What are the U.S. chambers doing or what are they advising a core group like Chris and Justin and Lori about how to get what they need right now when when people are being slow to understand. One of the arguments right now, Steve, is, oh, we got to get ready for the new economy. No, of course we will, but these business owners are smart enough to know how to move in the right direction. Of course, you're going to give some tools, but give us some advice, Jason and Steve, from the positions you sit at, in terms of how to get, how to move the issue forward, because right now we're not doing that. And one of the other things that was mentioned today was a $20 million loan fund. $20 million even to a state the size of Rhode Island, that is going to be insignificant.
Yes.
Yeah. When people read the headlines, they're going to say, "Oh, $20 million. I guess that's going to sell. That's great." Or $50 million. And their perspective on this thing, what Jason was talking about in terms of education, is they may, tomorrow's headline may calm a lot of people down. Oh, we got that under control. How Steve and Jason, how do you professionally lay out the urgency here and the critical nature that we're dealing with right now because of the COVID issue? I'll go to Steve and then to Jason.
Sure. As you mentioned, timing is so important. Nobody knows their business better than these business owners. They know they cannot wait 6 weeks to get these funds. They needed it yesterday. They needed it a month ago. Also, we'd like to see more, especially coming from the federal side. We want to see more grants. These businesses don't need to be taking on additional debt. At these, it's great to have the loans available and stuff like that. But if we can provide more grants, and immediate grants, get that money into. These are supposed to be emergency funds, and it is an emergency that these businesses are in. So you really need this. It's outstanding that you guys have formed this coalition. You need to get with your congressional delegation. They need to hear directly from you. They hear from the U.S. Chamber, but hearing from people from their state, it really hits home, and that is one of the best ways to move that forward. And I can't commend you enough for coming together, working with the lieutenant governor, and you've made big strides already, and we're going to keep moving forward.
Yeah, Jason, weigh in on that. Just give us a little advice, and then I'll open it up to Chris and Justin and Laurie to kind of ask you questions. We still got another 10 minutes or so before we go in. By the way, thank you for all of you being here tonight, and anyone out there that is watching this and that would watch this after the fact on video. Very important stuff. You always can call our office at 222-2371 if you have anything to add to this conversation, or you have other things that are important to you. And thank you for your comments as well. But go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, for me, I think the two things are really important, and as Steve mentioned, part of this in his answer as well, which is stories and data. Stories, that's the personal thing that Chris can tell, or Lori, Justin, they can say, this is what's happening to my business. These are the kinds of people, the numbers of people I employ. These are the challenges that we face right now, and these are the needs. And when you can marry that with data that show that your story is not just unique to Chris or Lori or Justin, but this is really representative of what businesses across the state are facing, I think then you have a much more powerful case that can begin to move the needle. The other thing I would say is that often in my experience in talking to policymakers about entrepreneurship, and it's not with all policymakers, but I think there can be a tendency to say, hey, we did this program or this funding for businesses, small businesses. So, hey, we did our thing. And that program or funding might be really critical and needed for businesses at a certain stage in the entrepreneurial journey. And I think it's important for business owners, advocates, people like myself and Steve to be able to educate policymakers about the process that an entrepreneur goes through, from having an idea, what kind of support do you need at that phase, to getting ready to start your business, to launching, to growing, to operating your businesses, because the needs change over time depending on what phase you are in that entrepreneurial journey. And if we really want to have a robust ecosystem that supports entrepreneurs of all kinds in our states and communities, government has to understand that process that an entrepreneur goes through and provide supports along that journey.
Jason, let me just ask you one more question, and you answer it, and then I'll give Chris and Justin and Laurie a chance to weigh in as they're thinking what they want to be asking. But you've set up through this, your group, what is it, Started Up America, I think it is, or something like that, right? You've set up these state affiliations. Tell us a little bit about what your goal is there, because I think that I think in this group, I'm certainly going to be recommending to this coalition that they learn more about that, because I think there seems to be some support. But what is your plan to spread this? And you have, I think, how many states are already that you have engaged in some formal way?
We have at least 36 states, and what we did when we launched last fall America's New Business Plan, we also formed a coalition. It's called Start Us Up, and it's open to any organization that supports entrepreneurship in some way. We have 170 plus organizations, as I said, in 36 states who have joined the Start Us Up coalition. And this is really important to us because the Kauffman Foundation is, if you are familiar with entrepreneurship, a lot of folks kind of know that name in the country. We're very privileged to have an endowment that allows us to put money towards good causes and to help people. But even with those resources, it's not enough to move the needle. We have to bring other people on board and to support them in this effort. And so we're trying to bring a chorus of voices together through the Start Us Up coalition to engage government at all levels, federal, state, and local, to make the case to them about why entrepreneurship matters and what they can do. And America's New Business Plan is a starting point for those conversations.
Thanks, Jason. I think that overview is important in the context of the fact that what we're doing here in Rhode Island. There's other examples that are happening other ways in the country, and feeding off that information. I'm sure people will hear what Laurie and Justin and Chris have done, and they'll be able to duplicate in that some way in their states. But we also could be looking for those ideas that we could incorporate into our efforts here. Laurie, I want to go to Laurie and then Justin and then Chris, either last comments you want to make or any question you might have of Steve or Jason. And then we'll have, Justin and then Chris and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I think, I guess that, there's so much good information here. I feel like finally, we are making headway from my perspective, and probably most entrepreneurs would say, we want to do more, we want it to happen now. We operate very quickly as entrepreneurs. And so one of the things we spoke about this morning was this idea that government doesn't understand, or you said government doesn't understand what's happening in the small business space or in the entrepreneurial space. But I also think at this point in this crisis time, it's super important for the businesses as well to understand what's unfolding before them in terms of how they partner or interact with government entities. And so it makes it really difficult for most businesses to even know where to go. So the value of what the Lieutenant Governor is doing in Rhode Island for businesses, I think is large. I guess the question I have for you is, as a new coalition that has already brought on thousands of businesses, where do we go from here? What would be maybe your top 2 or 3 recommendations in terms of doing more than, the press has helped us for sure, but we're still in a place of finding that there are people in the small state of Rhode Island that don't know about us or want to participate, and I guess it would be what is our next step, and are there policies or processes that we should implement immediately in order to move faster?
Jason?
Yeah, you mentioned you're thinking about forming a C6. I think, formalization of some kind, whether it's a C6 or another structure, can be helpful because it provides, kind of a framework for what you're doing and an opportunity for revenue to come in to support the effort and to grow it. Mm-hmm. My other suggestion would be to, think about, are there tools or other resources that you can create that make engagement from other small business owners easier. So that's something that we've tried to do in our Start Us Up coalition. We can put our resources to use to create social media messages that can go out on Twitter and graphics, or we could, create draft language that someone could use if they wanted to send a letter to their elected officials, just to make that process easier. Because as you said, there's a lot of knowledge gaps, and so we've talked about just the challenges of time. This stuff takes time. And with the craziness that's happening in the world today, I know people are even feeling more kind of like strapped for time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Justin, share your last thoughts, tonight, and any question you have of Jason while we have him here. And then Chris, I'd like to have you kind of like do our ask. What are we asking the people who are watching right now to actually do? Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I think for my last thing, I just want to, thank all the people that are watching. We kind of addressed it this morning a little bit. I don't think that a lot of small business owners really value what they did and what happened in our state today. And I know Chris will probably touch on it a little bit too, but taking those few seconds to go on and sign that petition and be part of the coalition to get your voice heard, for the first time in a very, 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 very long time, you were heard. And by the actions of the governor today, we can, somewhat consider it a, small success that we were heard and we're making the right strides in the right direction. So thank you to everyone who took a few seconds to support our hard work over the last 8 weeks.
Yeah. Thanks, Justin. Chris.
Well, thank you, Steve and Jason, for taking your time out tonight to share with us your insights and knowledge, and Steve, especially on the Senate side and the congressional side, to understand what that process is like and the timing. As we all mentioned, timing is important. And Jason, this is great. The website is startusupnow.org. So, we definitely will be looking into that even further after this conversation, and curious how we can, form up together. And we both talk about coalition, so there's certainly a lot of synergies to be had. And the coalition that we're talking about, if you're a small business owner, join our coalition today. Go to rismallbusiness.org, click the button that says join the coalition. And right now we already have thousands of small businesses, but our goal is to get 10,000 small businesses part of our coalition to ensure that our voice will be heard. So we had the initial step of the petition, which resulted in the governor releasing some of those funds, for small business grants. It wasn't the $125 million that we requested at a minimum. It was $50 million, but that's $50 million more dollars getting into the hands of small businesses that otherwise, if we did not speak up as a coalition, we wouldn't have had it. So let's continue to fight for our rights and advocate for our needs as small businesses. And we can't do any of this if we don't have the backing and unity of thousands of small businesses. So we all urge you to join the coalition going on rismallbusiness.org.
Yeah, and thanks, Chris. I say to Chris, Justin, Laurie, again, thank you very much. Being my three friends, my three amigos, and the work that you're doing. I have not seen anything like it, and I think for the first time, that petition is really an important one that we should continue to ask our elected officials to sign. Steve, we want you to sign it, and it's that litmus test question, right? Are you with us? Or are you not with us? And right now, I think that as Chris has said, we've got attention, and that's important. So, and then I want to just thank Jason and Steve as well, for joining us in this conversation. It's one that, as Chris and Laurie and Justin have said, we've just started. And because that we have that, this organization that's been started organically, we're looking for any help we can get, Steve and Jason, to help formalize that organization. So I want to thank both of you for taking your time and sharing your expertise.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure to join you, and look forward to further conversation.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much, and again, congratulations on forming this group. And please use the U.S. Chamber as a resource. Use your local chambers as a resource. Use the Lieutenant Governor as a resource. So You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you guys have all these voices. We're going to be a strong voice and a great advocacy. And if we can help out at the U.S. Chamber, please use us as a resource anytime. Like I said, I'm here in North Rhode Island and happy to help any way we can.
Well, we're going to take you up on that, Steve.
I think you're in trouble.
And
Great.
Jason and I want to welcome you all to this community conversation. We have this every week. Next week we're going to have a couple guests on that are talking about some of the issues that are happening in the African American and Black American community. Continue that conversation about that important topic. But tonight we were very privileged to have the originators, the founders of the RISmallbusiness.org and that coalition, along with Jason and also Steve for their national expertise. We're going to continue to bring that together. We've just started. I can tell you that what happened today was positive, but we can't just rest on that. $50 million is not enough. Waiting 6 weeks is far too long. $20 million of a loan strategy. No, I've been offering, a thought process about how to get $1 billion out in favorable loans over the next year to our small businesses. That's what we need to do. It's important to our communities, the community of families, and everybody that works out of the business, but also people who do business with the business, all the vendors, and then of course the people who actually are the people who do business and buy products and enjoy the services. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and we're going to continue this community conversation, in particular on helping our small businesses in the state of Rhode Island. Thank you, everybody, and thanks, Ben. Thank you very much, Ben. You did a good job.